Hello, my movie friends, my movie peeps, my cinephiles, my audiophiles, and all other types of files. This weekend, I went to the movies, and I'm gonna talk about what I saw. So, let's get into it. Okay, so I saw the new Darren Aronofsky film, Caught Stealing. Darren Aronofsky is kind of a controversial director. I tend to enjoy his movies. I think Requiem for a Dream is a masterpiece, if not one of the most depressing movies I've ever seen. But I know a lot of his other movies are very controversial, especially The Whale. But I think I enjoy everything I've seen from him. I quite like Pi, even though a lot of people don't. Obviously, I love Requiem for a Dream. Caught Stealing intrigued me, especially, though, because it seemed like a kind of a departure from Aronofsky's normal work. See, Aronofsky usually makes very dark and very bleak films. I mean, all of his big movies, Black Swan, Requiem for a Dream, The Whale, like all his very famous ones, are very bleak stories about very desperate people in very desperate places. They're human stories, but they're also very relentlessly unforgiving. So when the trailers came out for Caught Stealing, and it looked comedic, it looked a lot like older Guy Ritchie stuff, like Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I was instantly caught off guard when I saw Aronofsky's name was attached to it, but I was intrigued because I wanted to see how Aronofsky handles the comedy. And honestly, it's not as comedic as the trailers lead it off to be, which is something that I'd kind of been expecting before I watched the film. It does have that kind of style of Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. It is very goofy and over the top, just like, the trailers painted out to be. But there's a lot of really dark shit that happens in it, and it does get bleak at times. So it does have those Aronofsky-isms. I think my favorite way to describe it is it's the most Aronofsky, not Aronofsky movie I've ever seen. Which, I don't know if that makes sense. But, yeah, I really enjoyed Caught Stealing. I didn't think it was great, but I had a fun time with it. First off, let me talk about Austin Butler, who is the star of the movie. He's really great in it. I mean, we've seen him in a bunch of other films. He was great in Dune, he was great as Elvis, but, yeah, he's very fun in this. I think Butler was a great choice. His performance really adapts to the situation that he's in, whether it's super bleak or something super goofy and over the top. Butler is able to adapt to anything happening around him. The other performances weren't bad. Everyone is pretty great and serviceable. But I thought Matt Smith was a little bit too over the top and goofy in some parts of the movie, especially with the tone that Aronofsky had set up. But he actually doesn't show up in much of it, so yeah. I think the best thing about this film is how it keeps moving. It starts off pretty quick, and it does not stop in its pacing. It continues moving, and it continues pushing forward within its pacing, and that's what makes it so fun to watch, because if it's not either an action scene, it is a scene that moves the plot forward, and it's just an interesting plot to follow. I wouldn't say it's the most twisty and turny thing. It tries to do a few twists which you don't expect, but some things I saw coming. But it's a fun enough ride to get some enjoyment out of it. Obviously, I talked about the humor. There's some dark humor that comes up in it that's very Aronofsky that you wouldn't expect. There's some scenes that are played off as both as dark and as a joke, which is interesting. There's some weird tonal moments where the tone doesn't quite match what's happening on screen in this film, but it's not too bad. These are kind of nitpicks. The action in this film is fun enough when it shows up. It's much more violent than expected. It's not this over-the-top violence that you'd find in a Guy Ritchie movie. It's very Aronofsky violence. The violence is very realistic. And again, I talked about some of those tonal moments. Sometimes the violence is played off as a joke when the violence is very disturbingly real. And Aronofsky focuses on that violence. Violence is one of the biggest backdrops of this movie. So I don't know, if you don't enjoy that, then maybe not watch this movie. The movie mostly follows the character arc that Austin Butler's character is going on, and it's an interesting enough arc for me to follow. It's not the most deep thing ever, and it's not the best character arc that Aronofsky has done, but it's interesting enough, and it goes to enough interesting places that by the end I felt satisfied. I didn't feel anything in the movie was unsatisfying. This movie shares a lot of qualities with the film After Hours, which was very interesting because I really loved that movie when I was watching it, and I noticed all the After Hours parallels. It made me very excited. Obviously, we have Griffin Dunne in the movie, and his character is named Paul, which I think is very apparent how that's referencing After Hours. There's also just a lot of plot moments and a lot of moments throughout the film. The film also follows a character who kind of falls into this line of problems that he didn't really sign up for, and it's not really his fault, anything that's happening to him, but we just see this character adapt and move through in a slightly comedic tone with also some darkness to it. I enjoyed that. It's not as good as After Hours, and the story doesn't evolve as good as After Hours, but you can definitely tell some parallels in there. It's very clear. There was a cat in this movie, and that was pretty cool. I don't know, I just wanted to mention it because the cat is pretty cool in this movie. And it's not insufferable when they make jokes about the cat. They make a lot of jokes about the cat, and it's not insufferable. It's not Argyle levels of cat use. Overall, I enjoyed Caught Stealing. Honestly, there's not that much to say about it. It's not a film with a lot of substance to it, but I had a lot of fun with it. It was a goofy, fun time. It wasn't great. It wasn't amazing, and it definitely doesn't hold a candle to some of Aronofsky's earlier work, such as Black Swan or Requiem, but I still found it very fun, and I had a good time with it. I thought the action scenes were great, I thought the way the story moved was great, and I thought a lot of the acting was pretty solid. It was a fun enough time, and I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. This weekend I also watched The Toxic Avenger 2025. So The Toxic Avenger 2025 is based off the Toxic Avenger movie of the same name from 1984, made by Lloyd Kaufman. And if you know about any of that, then you kind of know exactly what this film is going to be. But for other people who haven't seen it, let me give some background. So The Toxic Avenger was made by this studio called Troma, and Troma is one of the longest running independent film studios ever to date. Although Troma is not an independent film studio like A24 or Neon, it's not for everybody. Their films are very low budget, and they specialize in films that are very crass and very over the top comedically and violence wise. Their movies are very, very offensively funny. There's a lot of very offensive jokes, a lot of very off-color stuff, a lot of stuff that's not PC or not for everyone. Movies are also incredibly violent, like way over the top. But the ideals of the company is just trying to lift up smaller artists who wouldn't be accepted anywhere else, who maybe have an odder way of thinking or a more off-color way of thinking than other artists. And it's also all about pushing the line to see where the line is and what is okay to show and say and what is not okay to show and say. And so I really respect them for that. But The Toxic Avenger is their cult franchise. There's like 4 of them now, but it's the one that started it all, and it's made by Lloyd Kaufman, who I believe is the CEO of Troma. Yeah, The Toxic Avenger is their big franchise, their novel one, and it's from 1984. It's a cult film that honestly I cannot recommend to everyone. It's very, very crass and over the top, just like I described. There's a lot of very sexist, there's a lot of very racist jokes. Honestly, some of the jokes in that original film aren't even funny. They're just trying to push the boundaries of what's okay and what's not okay, and it results in some very offensive stuff. The film is also incredibly, incredibly gory. They try to push the lines of what is okay and what is not, so obviously they show like very, very disgustingly gory deaths of like children and stuff, but none of it is in bad taste. Everything in that original film and everything from what I've seen from Troma is in good taste. They're not trying to offend anybody. They don't mean any harm to any specific type of person or group. They're just trying to find the line of what's okay to say and what's okay to not say. And I very much agree with that. And I think it's very interesting, and I support what they're doing. But that original Toxic Avenger is also very low budget for an 80s movie. So you kind of know what to expect and you kind of know what you're in for. But yeah, it's way over the top. It's very crass, but it's also very silly. It's honestly kind of sweet as well, that original Toxic Avenger, which is interesting. But this new one, Toxic Avenger 2025, is their reboot, multiple decades after the original, trying to reinvigorate the franchise, trying to bring it back. But interestingly about this movie is that it was made 2 years ago, or it released at film festivals 2 years ago, and it was supposed to go to theaters 2 years ago, but they couldn't find a distributor until this year. And from what I've read, the reason why they couldn't find the distributor is because it is so crass and so over the top and pushing the line. And now I've seen the movie, and honestly, it's not as bad as it was made out to be. It definitely does not go as far as the original Toxic Avenger. It does not push the lines as much. I will say there are some moments that they try to do some stuff, but it's not as far as a lot of trauma movies. It's honestly not as far as some comedy movies I've seen in recent times. So I honestly don't know why they didn't release this, because it's really not that far. I wouldn't say it's tame, but it doesn't push the line as much as a lot of trauma stuff. In the comedy department though, the jokes are very, very hit or miss. I honestly only laughed at a handful of jokes in the movie. Some of the ones just didn't land for me. That's kind of how some trauma movies are, but this felt much more hit or miss than the original Toxic Avenger for me. Now, the bad jokes I wouldn't say are like embarrassingly bad. You can tell there's passion behind these jokes and passion behind the writing. There's passion behind this movie and people who wanted to make this movie. It's just, it didn't hit for me 100% of the time, and I don't think it will hit with normal folks 100% of the time either. This movie is very ultra-violent, but they kind of stay away from the practical effects in the violence-wise, which is weird. It's a lot of digital blood, which is very ugly to look at. You can tell it's a lower-budget movie, but it uses its budget well. When the effects are practical, they look great. And there's a handful of CGI gore shots that look not too bad in this movie. But if we're talking about the practical department, the main makeup and design for the main Toxic Avenger in this movie is incredible. The makeup looks really great. It's super fun when it's played in the movie. They have little guts and brains coming out all gushing. It's very interesting to look at, and it's very well made. It's very convincing. And I'm glad that they used the budget that they did on the main Toxic Avenger. There's also a couple other villain and monster characters in this movie that have similar makeup and hairstyling to them. That's also very good. I'd say most of the makeup in this movie is very good. The makeup and hairstyling and costume design, it's all very good. It's all very fun. Again, the violence is hit or miss, just like the comedy. The action scenes are just also very hit or miss. But, you know, when they hit, they're fun. I wouldn't say it's anything incredible, but it's fun when it's fun. This movie follows a very different story than the first one as well. The first one follows, like, a nerdy high schooler who ends up getting pushed into a vat of acid. That becomes the Toxic Avenger. And this one follows a stepdad trying to take care of his stepson after his mother died. It's sweet enough. It's very Hallmark level, that relationship between him and his son. Honestly, it's something my grandmother would connect to, but my grandmother would never watch this movie. But yeah, it's nothing too interesting with any of the emotional stuff they try to get you at. And they do. There's a few scenes where they do try to get you at it, but it's nothing too interesting, and it's all very predictable stuff. All the actors in the movie are great, though. Peter Dinklage is properly fun. He does a few funny lines, and you can tell he's trying his best. Elijah Wood is also doing a lot of great stuff. He probably gives the best performance in the film. Other than that, the other performances aren't really noteworthy. Some of them go from serviceable to bad. There's some pretty bad line deliveries in this film, and there's no real way to get around that. There's some bad editing in this film, and there's some bad cinematography, and there's no real way to get around any of that. But other than that, I think it got mostly what it was going for. Again, I said the comedy didn't go as far as a normal trauma film. It was very hit or miss, but again, the original was also very hit or miss for me. I don't think the original's this incredible comedy. I only like a handful of jokes from the original, but the original is a little bit more charming than this. I think this does have some charm. It doesn't feel as soulless as a lot of franchise reboots or remakes. There is some passion behind this, and you can tell it has that trauma passion behind it. It's fun, and it's by a bunch of artists who just want to have a good time making a fun movie, but it didn't come together for me in the end. But again, that's how trauma movies are. They're very hit or miss. Honestly, I don't know if I can recommend this one to really anyone. If you're a fan of the original Toxic Avenger, I'd say give it a watch. You probably won't like it as much. If you're not already a fan of trauma stuff for the original Toxic Avenger, I honestly don't see why you should have a reason to watch this. It's very specifically for that audience, and it doesn't really serve any newer audience besides that. You know what you're going into, and if you know what you're going into and you kind of expect what you're going into, then you'll find some enjoyment out of it. But other than that, it's very trauma, and again, I have a very limited knowledge of trauma, and I honestly don't have much of an intrigue to explore more of their catalog. Overall, Toxic Avenger's trashy. It's fun. There's some passion behind it. I had a good time with it. It's not the best thing in the world. And I'm going to give it a 4.9 out of 10. Thank you everybody for watching, and thank you for continuing to support the channel. Make sure to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and share it with some friends who you think might enjoy this. You know, I just like talking about movies, and I hope to find a community that likes talking about movies just as much as I do. You know, I just want to do these fun little videos from time to time. I'm trying to ramp up my production on videos, so you might see a little bit more in the coming months, but I may do a little bit less of these movie reviews of everything I've seen in theaters, because not everything's worth talking about. And again, thank you so much for watching. Follow me on Letterboxd at Gambit the Great, and you know what? Have a good day, everybody. Eric out.